Sure that we're going, and we are. And good evening, everybody, to Scout Lake Baptist Church and all those online. We're glad that you're watching us. I'm not sure if anybody's in the chat yet, but I'm kind of keeping an eye on that. So we're going to get started here. We're going to look in our Bibles tonight to Matthew 25, Matthew chapter 25. We're going to start in verse 14. And it says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents." And then right there, I kind of stopped. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm missing something. And I went back and I reread it, and I said, and it says, "For it will be like." What will be like? For it will be like a man going on a journey. What's going to be like a man going on a journey? So I started doing some research. I called Pastor John earlier today, and I'm like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And so I was doing some research of what will it be like doing a man on a journey. So I did some research, some more research, and I started in the beginning of the chapter. And it says, the kingdom of heaven, 25 verse 1, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to the bridegroom. Then I'm like, okay. So then I started wondering a little bit more, where did we get to these parables at and what's going on? So then I jumped back one more chapter, and I started reading and starting in Matthew 24. And it says, "As Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, 'Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?' And Jesus answered them, 'See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of the birth pains." In 24:9 it says, "Then they will deliver you up." Who will deliver? They? Well, they're the enemy of God. "They will deliver you up to the tribulation, be put to death," or they're deceived. One of the two, but they're the enemy of God. "And you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake." This is in the future. "And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. All this and this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." 15. "So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let loose who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down and take what is in the house. And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas, for women who are pregnant and those who are nursing infant in those days, pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be a great tribulation, such as has not been from such the beginning of the world until now, and never will be. And if those days had not been short, no humans would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'There he is,' do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand," Jesus says. So if they say to you, 'Look, he is in the wilderness,' do not go out. If they say, 'Look, he is in the inner rooms,' do not believe it. For the lightning For the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be like the Son of Man coming. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Coming of the Son of Man. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the earth to the other. But concerning the day or the hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah in the past, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until that day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. A woman grinding on the mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if a master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. I just, something just came to me, and it talked about until the day when Noah entered the ark, and the people, were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. Today we live in a place, we live in a society, we live in a world that we're all unaware. We live in a place where people just are doing what they're doing wherever they're going, and they're just unaware. Don't know their surrounding, don't know what's going on, just completely unaware. So let's go back. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a history of where I started at today. Pastor Brian had an appointment, had a meeting that he couldn't make it tonight. He just kind of said, hey, Pastor Paul, could you cover for me? And I got something together pretty quick, but I think it's going to be quite interesting for you to hear. Tonight's message is called Shoulda, Woulda, Coulda. For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, but he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he had received the 1 talent, went and dug into the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of those servants, well, hello everyone. I did. I just started. It was 6:20, and I'm like, well, let's get going here. Hey, Pastor Brian. Howdy. Why don't you take a quick moment and say hello? We're live on camera here. But going back to the scripture, Matthew chapter 25. I'm going to start over here again. For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. He was a hustler. So he also, the one who had 2 talents, made 2 talents more. He was also a hustler. And he who had received, the 1 talent, went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long long time, says long time on here, so a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with him. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents here. I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents here. I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Now, picture this. I saw this cartoon, and this cartoon, there was these 3 dudes who was in line. The dude who had the 5 talents was first, the dude who had the 2nd talents was next, and then the dude who had 1 talent was at the end of the line, kind of shaking and going, But however, the dude who had the 5 talents, he was also a little bit nervous, and the guy who had the 2 talents was also a little bit nervous because they were taking account of what they were doing. But I mean, you can kind of picture in your mind the 3 people in line, one, the next one, and then the guy's shaking. It's my turn next. What am I going to do? Well, let's go ahead and find out what's going on for the person who had 1 talent. And let's see, where am I at? I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him for the 2 talents, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He has also received the 1 talent, coming forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. Basically saying, You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and I gather where I have scattered no seed? What? He's trying to say. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was mine own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will be given more, and he who will have an abundance, But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken from him. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I wanted to have a few thoughts here. The lazy servant is lazy, but he's full of excuses. He had excuses. We all know people full of excuses. No matter where we're from, we all know people full of excuses. We can think back on them and say, oh yeah, I remember that person, or I know this person, or this person never gets anything done. They've always got an excuse of why it's not done. They're always like never on time, right? They're never doing this, they're never doing that. They always have an excuse. We all know people full of excuses. We all know people full of reasons why their life never turned out right, why nothing ever goes right, or why this or that never gets done. Usually, sad to say, but usually the problem is that person. And we will call it as it is, laziness. I don't have the money for that, or they desire pity and help, but the person doesn't want you to ask them why they don't have the money. If they are an able-bodied person, they didn't get a job. They could have had a job, but they didn't get a job. They didn't want to work, or they didn't work, or they have a job and they just blew their money on it. But they're just wanting you to feel sorry for them, and maybe you'll pay for what they need to have done. Well, that's a lazy person. We got to be careful of that. Now let's ask ourselves this. Stop, focus, and put attention on yourself for a minute. I mean, this isn't a good thing. I know we all as humans, we like to put attention on ourselves or talk about ourselves, but stop and think for a second about yourself. You might know yourself best. Maybe you are blind, but others can see you for what you cannot see yourself for. Maybe you think everything is fine and everything is okay, but it's really not. Let's ponder further. Let's ponder out there, wherever you are in this world, whatever part of this world you're from, wherever you're watching us from or whatever you're doing, do you work when you go to work, or are you lazy? Do you just do the minimum amount of work, or do you actually go work? I know there are coworkers who may be dishonest and talk about you, or maybe even maybe even be honest about you. Maybe you can't see that you're not doing what you could be doing, or maybe you could be doing more, but you don't realize you could be doing more. But do you work when you go to work? Are you working efficiently? Maybe you need to stand back, think, look at reality, and see what others do and what you do. Put yourself to a measure, stand up. What do you do? What do they do? Who gets more done at the end of the day? Maybe that's a gauge that you can measure yourself with. Also, we don't need to just be doing work if it is pointless with no results. Let's think if we might need to change course or approach. We might be too focused on busy work, like Martha. Be careful. Now let's go back to the beginning. Now I know you guys didn't hear it because you weren't here, but let's go back to the beginning. In verse 1 of 25, it says, "Then the kingdom of heaven will be like," and Jesus is talking about a parable here, we will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. So we have a 50%, what's what I'm looking for? Foolish and 50% wise. Today, I don't know if we have 50% wise and 50% foolish. I would tend more to be on the higher side of foolish people than the wise people, but that's a measure that we really can't gauge. But there is a lot of people who need to look at themselves and say, where am I at? But let's keep going. But the wise took flask of oil with their lamps. So they actually took extra oil. And the foolish took their lamps and they took no oil with them. So we have a parable here of foolish people and wise people. The foolish people, they took no oil to put in their lamp. The wise took oil to put in their lamp. That's where we're at. Let's keep going now. As the bridegroom was delayed. There's always a problem in life. There's always delays. I mean, when you're going somewhere, if you think about it, look at construction out there. Look at traffic out there. There's always something to make you late. You can never plan things properly because there's always something keeping you behind. There's always some people in life too who are always late. So it doesn't matter. It's just no matter what, they're always late. But the wise, then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish virgins said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise answered, saying, "Since there will be not enough for us and for you, rather go to the dealers and buy for yourselves." And while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he answered, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you." Jesus then warns us in verse 13, "Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." Now, I just want to stop for a second, and I want to go over something that should be common sense, and it should be, but sometimes we don't think about certain stuff. But should, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Should. We know to do something. If something is should, we know we should be doing it. So we know to do something. Could, we can act or have the means to do whatever it is we're supposed to do. And would is a choice if we will or will not. So think about that. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. This is where we're at. The virgins knew, they didn't think about it. They weren't aware of, oh, gee, I need more oil. Back in the days of Noah, they weren't aware. Oh, well, they don't think. People sometimes don't think. And that's the same problem we have today. People don't always think. They think after a problem happens, but they don't think before they create a problem for themselves. So a lot of times people get in trouble because they don't think forward. We can also see the virgins in this parable had 5 of them had no preparation and a huge lack of thought. No care for true priorities. All they had to do was have oil from merchants. They had to have enough, but they didn't. Could they not afford the oil? No, because they ended up getting it. No action or a lack of action, a lack of planning. It's what a lot of people have problems with today, a lack of planning. Today we see a huge business, large business, in the finance world of financial planners as an example, because people are too busy with what? They can't take care of themselves or their finances, so they have somebody else cover that. They have somebody else do that. They have somebody else, maybe they don't have enough time, or they have, who knows? Maybe they just are we're in our own little world. But this is an example. There's a lot of financial planners in the world because people can't plan for themselves. There's also all other kinds of planners in the world because people can't plan for themselves. I understand sometimes it's convenient and sometimes it's easy, but not always. There is a lot more there than just what it is. Many people lack education to have to be able to do. We have so many methods today to acquire knowledge, but they have no drive. They have no ambition. Perhaps they have a lack of caring. I don't know. Or they're just careless or careless spending. Some folks make all kinds of money. You know people out there that'll make all kinds of money, but for some reason, instead of them buying assets or giving to the kingdom of God or investing it in themselves or their education or investing in something that would be beneficial for them or their family, they're always broke. I understand prices have gone up and I understand a lot of different things but when prices were lower, they still didn't do anything. They had no planning. They were careless. They didn't do anything. Why? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. They knew they should have done something. They had the means to do it, but it was a choice that they chose not to do anything. Jesus' teaching emphasizes a lot of stuff here. In Matthew 25, are we prepared? Jesus then warns, once again, watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. What is our focus on? Do we go to work a job, go home and do nothing else? Are we retired and have all this time, but no time for work in the kingdom? Oftentimes we are consumed with ourselves on useless things and ourselves. Where is our focus? I don't know. I know where a lot of focus is not. Jesus tells us what and where our main focus should be on. And that's just not busy work. That's not on ourselves. That's just not on the things of this world. That's on Him and His kingdom. Jesus' teaching emphasizes spiritual focus. He urges people to prioritize God's kingdom over other stuff, over earthly things. He urges us to focus on His righteousness above everything else, over earthly things, over daily worries. He encourages fixing one's gaze on Him, the author and perfecter of our faith. Jesus encourages us to find peace amidst difficulties in Him. Believers are instructed to set their minds on things above and control their thoughts to be obedient to Christ and to transform their minds by focusing on God's plans and promises. We are to focus on God's kingdom. Jesus taught Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. This means placing spiritual matters in God's will as the primary focus of life. Believers are also encouraged to fix our eyes on Jesus. He's the author and the perfecter of our faith. It tells us that in Hebrews 12:2. This involves looking to Him for strength, solutions, and peace rather than being consumed by our problems. We have a lot of problems in life. I was just talking about the traffic problems out there. I'm sure you guys have traffic problems wherever you are in this world, maybe watching this one day. But there's always problems. This day is a new problem. Yesterday was a different problem, and tomorrow will be a new problem. Always problems. And mindset matters. The focus is on internal transformation through the renewing of the mind. This involves deliberately thinking about things that are true, noble, pure, and admirable, and not conforming to worldly patterns. Control your thoughts. Control what goes in your mind. Do your best. Fight your thoughts. If it's a bad thought, say, get out of my mind. There isn't any reason, but control your thoughts. It's hard. I'm not going to say, oh, just do this, do this, do that. It's hard to control your thoughts. It's hard to control yourself. It's hard to do all kinds of different things, but that's what we're called to do. You know, there isn't a direct quote where Jesus says, focus on me. Matthew 14:22-33, Jesus calls Peter to walk on the water, but Peter sinks when he takes his eyes off Jesus. How often do we take our eyes off Jesus? And he focuses on the stormy waves. He focuses on what's around him. I mean, Jesus is right there. He's looking right at Jesus. He's going to Jesus, and all of a sudden he gets sidetracked. Maybe there's a huge wave, and it's just coming right at him, and he's not sure. Jesus, wave. Jesus, wave. Another wave. Jesus, wave, wave. And he gets his eyes off Jesus, and he starts to sink. But he calls out to Jesus and says, Lord, help me, I'm sinking. And Jesus picks him back up. This is like we are in our life. We are always wanting to look to Jesus, but we are always so distracted by what's around us. We're so focused on what's going on here, the problems there, the problems that are over there, and we're just not focusing straight ahead. We got to be careful. We got to stay focused on what we're doing. We have to not worry about tomorrow. Jesus instructed his followers to not worry about future anxieties, but to give your entire attention to what God's doing right now, and don't get worked up about what may or may not happen. It's Matthew 6:34. Are we a good manager of our time? Do we waste a lot of time? I have to raise my hand and say I do waste my time sometimes. I'm on my bed and I'm scrolling through, and maybe it's the end of the night and I'm watching some stupid shorts or something, or I'm doing this or I'm doing that, and we have to be careful that we don't let stuff consume us. We have to make sure that we stay focused and we stay where we're supposed to stay and we do what we're supposed to do. It can be hard, but going back, I want to make sure that in the kingdom of heaven, 25:1, Matthew 25:1, the kingdom of heaven will be like, and it's like that today, foolish and wise. We're going to go back here again to the master with the one talent. You wicked and slothful servant. You wicked and slothful, lazy servant. What happened to him? He got cast. He said to cast the worthless servant into outer darkness. Stop and ask yourself this question. Are you that lazy servant? You should be doing something that you know that you're supposed to be doing, because the Bible tells us that we're supposed to be doing something. You could be doing it. You have the means to do it. Woulda. You coulda, you shoulda, and you woulda. Would a choice if we will or we will not. But we're choosing not to do it. I have to ask ourselves all this question. If we're in front of that master, is he going to say, you're a lazy servant or you're a good servant? You're a lazy servant, get this bum out of here. Or, hey, you're a good servant, come on in. I don't know. You have to ask yourself that question. I don't know you. I mean, I don't know your situation. But we have time. We have a certain amount of time. We only have this much time to do certain stuff. Will we is the question. Will I is the question. Will you is the question. Only you can make that decision for yourself. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. At the end of our lives, we don't want to say, I should have done that. I could have done this. I would have done that. You know, I tell my wife sometimes, I should have bought more of that share. I should have bought more of that stock. And she'll say, well, why didn't you do it? I should have, but I didn't. I could have, but I didn't. I wanted to, but I had a choice and I chose not to. There's a lot of different things and a lot of choices and a lot of things. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. We can just look at the wise and the foolish virgins. They should have brought more oil. They should have been aware. They should have thought before the bridegroom came. They should have all said, hey, let's all have oil. Let's all do this. They should have been wise, but they wasn't. There was this other lazy servant who should have at least taken the money to the people who gave interest, because you see, the master said, I should have my worth, because he lost money to inflation because he did not get it with interest. That's what he says here in the Bible. I just can't find it at the particular second. But his master, you wicked, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather seed gather where I have scattered no seed. Then you had ought to invest in my money with the bankers at my coming. I should have received what was mine own, his own, with interest. So take that talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. We all have talents. We all have the ability to do things. Will we or will we not? Let's go ahead and pray. God,